it started off as a side gig and you grew that into your full-time position, your full-time job with employees.
Right. Yep. We have a team of 10 now.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's wicked cool. But on top of that, when you started, and even going back to when you were freelance, who would you talk to?
Excellent question. So I hope it's not revealing too much. You and I were talking earlier about coaching and the importance of that. I can't emphasize how important it's been in my career to be able to lean on coaches. And so I've engaged executive leadership coaches, I've engaged business coaches, various folks to help me through what was holding me back at the time. So my first coach I engaged, I've always had mentors, right? Folks that I could call on, peers in the industry to kind of tap for different areas where I needed support. I remember when I was leaving my full-time job and taking the company full-time and planning to make all my money from this, what used to be this little freelancing side project. I called another agency owner who owned a firm in Rochester. And I said, what do I need to know here? This is what I'm going to do. I'm taking this full time. And his advice was being aware of your shortfalls, right? What is the biggest area of opportunity for growth that you have? And for me at the time, it was sales. I said, I don't know how to bring in new folks to this agency, and he said, then that's the thing to focus on. And that was great advice. And so I've had a number of coaches over the years that have helped me hone different aspects of the business.
Great. Talk about clients for a second. When you first began, what was what was a typical client for you? Did you have, you today you're in food, beverage, and ag. What was the core customer when you started?
So when I first started, it was a lot of folks like me. It was people who had a side project that they wanted a logo for, or they needed business cards or a rack card brochure or something like that. That was simple work that I would do. My first logo design project I did for $100. We've got a couple extra zeros at the end of that now, which is great.
Right.
But we also understand more of the layers of impact that work like that has.
And then through the years, you started developing a reputation. You're building your business. What types of work were you doing? Let's say before you honed in on food. What was the mix like at back in the day?
Yeah. So I would say at that time, which let's call it 3 to 5 years ago, we were a general services firm that offered branding work. I don't think we were doing some strategy at the time, although not a lot of strategy. Most of our strategy now is in brand strategy and, who is your customer? How do you find them? That kind of thing. Whereas at the time, I think our strategy work was very light, very simple, marketing plan kind of thing. And we were doing still a lot of graphic design work, advertisements for newspapers and a lot of brochures. My bread and butter at the time, especially on the longer side, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I did a lot of annual reports. And I loved those because it was taking a lot of really complex information and figuring out how to organize it in a way that the customer would understand, the reader would be able to be guided through a story. And so I loved that. And I think that did kind of start to plant the seeds of what we're doing now in brand development work, right? Where instead of taking a bunch of complex information that is content for a brochure and organizing it in a way that a user can understand, we're taking a complex story of a brand and their history and where they're trying to go and taking that timeline and projecting into the future to say, these are the different puzzle pieces for you. And so there's some parallels there with what we used to do on the annual report side of things.